Hello, I hope this finds you well. I'm Jennifer Lynn. I write the story of Bree MacLeod. She's a modern-day shaman of Irish and Scottish lineages. All of the books in Bree MacLeod's story are a series, but each one is also a standalone book, which means you can pick up and join Bree's story wherever you feel called. And each of the books takes a metaphysical, a mystical, or shamanic concept and explores it through story. So Bree and the other characters are fictional, but the content is not. Today, I'd like to read to you from the most recent addition to Bree MacLeod's story, The Chalice and the Blade. I'll start you off with chapter 1. So, The Chalice and the Blade, chapter 1. Bree MacLeod stared at the plush couch and love seat snuggled against the shadows of the darkened living room. Gwen loved those chairs. They're so welcoming, Gwen had insisted. Bree bought them just to see that smile on her lover's face. Now they sat empty, silenced, and waiting. Bree blinked back tears. 18 months. She last saw those chairs from the open doorway of their University Hills apartment. Switching off the light, Bree cast her eyes through the room one last time. Then, without a word, she locked the door behind her and flew to Ireland with no plans to return. Nothing has changed. Turning to her right, she leaned upon the wooden surface of the round three-person dining room table. Their table. Tears welled again and threatened to spill down her cheeks. Widening her eyes, Bree slid into her usual seat at the table. Sleep-tossed black hair fell across her face. She shoved the coarse strands aside and shifted her gaze down the foyer to her left. She could just see it, her still-packed suitcase, waiting by the closed front door. Arriving far later than planned, she dropped it there last night before wrapping herself in the fleece throw blanket at the foot of their bed and falling asleep. Everything I need is in there. She eyed the soft-sided travel case. It would be so easy. Just pick it up, lock the door, and slip away. When you cannot go around, the voice of her salmon ally called from the other world, you must go through. Bree frowned. Salmon was correct. She knew it well enough. She'd been running for more than a year, hiding in the thatched cottage in Kildare, Ireland she inherited upon her mother's death. But sorrow had found her there, too. She closed her eyes and tears spilled down her cheeks. As her body rocked with the release, she let the tears fall. Bree balled her hands into fists. She was so tired of crying. She'd marked the past year with weeping, every fire festival, each turning of the moon. Fighting the cascade, Bree slowed her breathing. Consciously, she inhaled through her nose and exhaled through her mouth. As her body matched the rhythm of her breath, her training engaged. Then the world around her blurred, the chair beneath her dissolved, and she fell into the other world. Thick, cold moss pulls at bare feet as Bree runs through a darkened forest. All around her, shouts ricochet through the gloom. Tree limbs throw deepening shadows, and she struggles to breathe the dense, stifling air. Heavy footsteps shake the earth behind her, and Bree spins on her heel. Tilting off balance, she loses her footing in the soft undergrowth. Darkness swallows her. Bree stands frozen, her heart pounding. Groping blindly, she stretches her hands before her, and something cold grazes her fingertips. A woman screams. The sound slices through Bree, and she falls. Her shoulder rocks against something hard, and her breath rushes out in a grunt. As she gasps for breath, fire blazes to life before her. In a crimson-orange flash, it consumes the forest to encircle her. Heart pounding, Bree pushes herself to her knees and rises carefully to her feet. All around her, fire snaps and hisses. Hungry crimson-orange tongues lick at her, lashing closer and closer. Bree opened her eyes. Fighting to slow her racing breath, she found herself held in a gentle, loving gaze. The goddess Bridget, Bree's otherworldly teacher and the mother of her lineage, watched her from the opposite chair. No more running. Bridget's voice, feminine, ancient, loving, reverberated through Bree as a soft thud sounded from the oakwood floor beneath her. Bree glanced toward her feet. Just to the left of her bare toes rested a stone carving of a fleur-de-lis. Bree inhaled sharply. She knew that stone. She saw it last in a journey during her recent stay on the Isle of Skye, Scotland. A gift from her otherworldly allies, the stone was the reason she'd returned to St. Louis. Lifting her gaze, she looked into the eyes of her teacher. Mother Bridget shook her head. No more running, Bree Nickreach. Bree bristled at the sound of her Gaelic name. That was new too. Another remnant of her stay on the Isle of Skye. She bent down and picked up the stone. Gentle warmth flooded through her palm and pooled in the tips of her fingers. As she raised it closer to her face, her hand pulsated, reverberating like a heartbeat. Her hazel eyes drifting across the image, she considered the stone. Small enough to tuck into the palm of her hand, it was ornately carved and deceptively heavy. In her inner vision, a small fracture cracked the heart of the central petal. Tiny fissures stretched from the opening as a crimson-colored liquid welled to the surface. Her hand trembling, Bree watched the viscous fluid creep toward the edges of the fleur-de-lis. She blinked. Blood trickled from the stone and spilled to the floor. I hope you've enjoyed this reading of The Chalice and the Blade, Chapter 1. The Chalice and the Blade, along with the other books of Bree MacLeod's story, are available through Amazon. For this, The Chalice and the Blade, you can follow the link http://mybook.2/chalice on Amazon. Or you can just search The Chalice and the Blade, Jennifer Lynn on Amazon.com. Be well.